Some games entertain, some games challenge, and some should have never been made at all. What if a simple download could change you? What if a game was watching you back? Tonight, we uncover 5 of the most disturbing horror games ever created. Games that blur the line between fiction and reality. Play at your own risk, but don't say you weren't warned. Most horror games are designed to scare you. But some aren't meant to be played at all. They don't want to entertain you. They don't want to thrill you. They want to break you. And few games have been as deeply disturbing, as eerily inexplicable as Sad Satan, a game that allegedly came from the deepest corners of the dark web. A game that left those who played it shaken, disturbed, and questioning reality itself. A game that shouldn't exist. The first mention of Sad Satan appeared in 2015, when a YouTube channel called Obscure Horror Corner uploaded footage of a strange, unsettling game they claimed to have found on the dark web. According to the uploader, they received a mysterious link from an anonymous subscriber, a link that led to a hidden download. No developer name, no instructions, just an unmarked, corrupted-looking file. They installed it anyway, and that was their first mistake. When the footage was released, Sad Satan didn't look like any horror game people had seen before. There were no clear objectives, no enemies, no jump scares, no story, just an endless, suffocating maze of dark hallways leading nowhere. The walls oozed with static-like textures, glitching as if the game was breaking apart in real time. The entire environment felt wrong, as if it was designed to be unwelcoming, alien, and sentient. The deeper players wandered, the more unsettling the game became. The only sound? A low, garbled hum, like a broken radio playing voices that weren't meant to be heard. As players explored, the audio would shift. Faint, indecipherable voices whispered from the darkness, sometimes too low to understand, sometimes loud enough to make the speakers crackle. Then came the real voices, fragments of distorted speech, unnatural, warped sentences from real-world recordings, a slowed-down voice saying, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" A child's terrified scream, cut off abruptly, a well-known quote from a real serial killer, a chilling reminder that the horror wasn't just fictional. The game felt like it was pulling pieces of real nightmares, blending them into a digital hellscape that no player could fully understand. Then, there were the images. Throughout the game, players reported seeing brief, flickering flashes, almost too quick to register. A black and white photo of a girl with hollow eyes, staring at the screen. A shadowy figure standing motionless in the corner of a hallway, vanishing when approached. A grotesque, distorted face, twisted in pain, or something worse. Some claimed the images weren't just random horror assets. Some claimed they were real photographs. Photographs of missing people, victims of violent crimes, faces that never should have been in a game. When Sad Satan surfaced, the internet exploded with speculation. Who made this? And why? Some believed it was an experiment in psychological horror designed to push the boundaries of what a game could do to a player's mind. Others suggested something far darker. A recruitment tool for the deep web. A way to lure unsuspecting players into something sinister. A mind control experiment. A test of subliminal messaging hidden within digital horrors. A cursed game, embedded with the tortured memories of real-world tragedies. One theory suggested that Sad Satan wasn't meant to be found. That the anonymous sender was a warning, not an invitation. But the most disturbing part? Some versions of the game were reportedly different. Shortly after Obscure Horror Corner's videos gained traction, a second version of Sad Satan appeared. This version wasn't just unsettling, it was evil. Unlike the original, this version contained explicitly disturbing imagery. Real photographs of violence, gore, and suffering. People who claimed to have played it reported terrifying experiences beyond the screen, hearing whispers even after turning the game off, seeing shadowy figures in their peripheral vision, feeling an overwhelming sense of dread and paranoia that lingered for days. One player reported that their computer started acting strangely after playing. Their files began disappearing and their keyboard would type on its own. Another claimed that after uninstalling the game they could still hear the distorted whispers in their dreams. The original Sad Satan was eventually erased from the internet. No official copies remain. No known developer has ever come forward. The anonymous link that led to its download? Long gone. Was it an art project gone wrong? A dark web nightmare that escaped into the real world? Or something else, something designed to spread, to infect, to linger? We may never know. But one thing is certain. If you ever come across a game named Sad Satan, do not play it. Some games entertain, others terrify, and then there are the ones that shouldn't exist at all. In the early 1980s, an arcade cabinet appeared in Portland, Oregon. No manufacturer, no logo, just a single name glowing ominously on the screen: Polybius. Few ever played it, fewer still remember it, and those who did, they were never the same. According to those who encountered it, Polybius wasn't like any other arcade game at the time. It wasn't a simple shooter, a side-scroller, or a maze game like Pac-Man. It was something else entirely, something that felt unnatural. The game's graphics were mesmerizing, filled with impossible geometric patterns that pulsed and twisted in ways the human brain struggled to comprehend. The colors shifted unpredictably, moving in a way that made players feel disoriented, almost entranced. The moment you started playing, it felt like you were being pulled in. It wasn't just a game, it was an experience. But that experience came with a price. Players reported bizarre physical and psychological symptoms after just a few minutes of gameplay: intense nausea and vomiting, blinding migraines that lasted for days, sudden memory loss as if entire chunks of time had been erased, night terrors, filled with shadowy figures watching from the darkness. Others spoke of even stranger effects, flashes of unreadable text appearing on the screen, gone before they could process what it said. Uncontrollable mood swings, shifting between euphoric highs and crushing despair, a disturbing sense of paranoia, as if someone or something was watching them. And then, there were the blackouts. Some players claimed they would lose consciousness mid-game, waking up hours later with no memory of what had happened. Others spoke of sudden, overwhelming urges, some violent, some nonsensical, like the game was reprogramming their minds. And then, just as mysteriously as it appeared, Polybius was gone. One day, arcade owners reported seeing men in black suits visiting locations where the game was installed. They would open the cabinets, extract something from inside, and then leave, without saying a word. Days later, the machines were removed altogether. No official records exist. No company ever claimed ownership. It was as if Polybius had never existed at all, but the rumors never stopped. One of the most chilling theories suggests that Polybius was never meant to be a game. Some believe it was a covert MKUltra experiment, a psychological warfare test disguised as an arcade cabinet. The theory suggests the game was designed to test mind control techniques using a mix of subliminal messaging, hypnotic visuals, and auditory manipulation. If true, that would explain the memory blackouts, altered behavior, intense emotional responses, and sudden disappearances of the machines themselves. But if this was an experiment, what was the goal? To test mind control on unsuspecting teenagers? To see how far the brain could be pushed before breaking? Or was it something even darker, something we were never meant to understand? As years passed, Polybius became a legend. Some dismissed it as a hoax, a distorted memory of an obscure arcade game blown out of proportion by rumors. Others were convinced it was real, but buried by those who created it. A few even claimed to have found surviving copies of the game, but every time someone claimed to have played it, they either disappeared or refused to speak about it again. Coincidence? Or proof that Polybius was more than just a myth? Today, no verified copies of Polybius exist. No code, no official documentation, nothing. Yet the legend persists. Whispers on dark web forums claim that hidden versions of the game still exist, buried deep in encrypted files, waiting for someone foolish enough to unlock them. And if they do, well, let's just say there's a reason no one who's played Polybius ever speaks about it again. Some games are lost because people forget them. Some games are buried because they were never meant to be played. And then there's Kill Switch, a game that didn't just disappear. It erased itself. It didn't want to be remembered. It didn't want to exist. And once you finished it, neither did you. The legend of Kill Switch dates back to the early 1980s, created by a now defunct Soviet game company called Carvina Corporation. It was allegedly a one-of-a-kind horror puzzle game, released in limited copies, only 5,000 ever made. But what set it apart from any other game of its time was something terrifyingly unique. Unlike any other software, once you beat Kill Switch, the game deleted itself, permanently. It didn't allow you to replay. It didn't allow you to share your experience. It simply vanished. And so did every trace of what truly happened inside it. The few accounts that exist describe Kill Switch as a side-scrolling survival horror game, set in a bleak industrial nightmare. The player controlled a woman named Porto, navigating a desolate, abandoned factory, where she was pursued by something unseen, a shapeless, shifting, demonic force known only as Ghast. The goal was simple: escape. But nothing in Kill Switch was ever simple. The factory was a labyrinth of impossible architecture. Doors led back to where you started, corridors twisted upon themselves, shadows moved when nothing was there. And then there was the sound design, a constant low hum, growing louder the longer you played. Unintelligible whispers, forming words in a language that didn't exist. Every now and then, faint sobbing could be heard. But there was no one in the game except Porto. And the more you progressed, the more the game began to glitch, as if something was desperately trying to stop you from reaching the end. There was another playable character in Kill Switch, but no one ever played as him. His name was Ghast, the very entity that hunted Porto. But there was a catch. When players selected Ghast, the screen would go completely black. There were no controls, no sound, nothing. The game would still be running, but you couldn't see or hear a thing. And yet, some players claimed they could still feel something moving. Those who tried playing as Ghast reported bizarre, inexplicable occurrences. Their computers overheated no matter how advanced their hardware. The screen would display faint, distorted images impossible to capture. Some claimed to hear a low growl coming from their speakers, even after the game was closed. But no one could ever prove what happened because once the game was shut off, it was gone. Since Kill Switch erased itself upon completion, no full playthrough has ever been recorded. No two accounts are exactly the same. And over the years, many terrifying theories have emerged. A government experiment in psychological warfare. Some believe Kill Switch was never a game at all, but a Soviet mind control experiment. A test in subliminal programming designed to see how much fear a player could withstand. After all, why design a game that deletes itself? Unless the experience itself was the real test, a digital ghost story. Others claim Kill Switch was cursed, created by someone or something that didn't want to be remembered. A game that was never meant to be found. They say the last person to ever claim to own a copy was a man named Yamamoto Ryuichi, a Japanese collector who paid over $700,000 for what was believed to be the final known copy of the game. He announced that he would record himself playing it to completion, but after his final update, he vanished. No video, no explanation, just one final message typed in binary code. I see it now. And then, silence. Perhaps Kill Switch was never meant to be beaten because finishing it wasn't the goal. Maybe it wasn't the game that deleted itself. Maybe it was the player that was erased. To this day, no working copies of Kill Switch have ever been recovered. Every file that ever existed has been lost to time. or something else. Maybe it was just an elaborate hoax, a digital ghost story born from the early internet. Maybe it was real, but designed to be forgotten. Or maybe, somewhere out there on some forgotten hard drive, kill switch is waiting for someone to play it one last time. But if you find it, will you? Some urban legends fade over time, others grow stronger. And then there's Ben Drowned, a tale so disturbing, so deeply unsettling that even now, over a decade later, it refuses to die. A haunted game, a corrupted soul, a digital curse, and at the center of it all, Ben. It all started with a simple, innocent yard sale. In 2010, a college student named Jedusable stumbled upon a strange old Nintendo 64 cartridge of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. It was unmarked, no official label, just the word Majora scribbled onto it in black marker. The old man selling it was odd, distant, and when asked about the game, he simply smiled and said, "It belonged to a boy named Ben." Then, as Jedusable walked away, the old man muttered something under his breath. "Goodbye, Ben." At the time, it didn't seem like much, but as soon as the game was booted up, things started to go very, very wrong. At first, the game seemed normal, just an ordinary copy of Majora's Mask, but then, the save file screen revealed something unsettling. There was already a save file there, labeled Ben. When trying to create a new file, the game referred to him as Ben, even after he deleted the original save. NPCs in the game started acting strangely, staring at him, calling him Ben, even when he had changed the name. Then came the music. Songs played backward, distorting into eerie, unnatural tones. Sometimes the game would freeze, but instead of a normal crash, the screen would fill with nonsense text, or worse, cryptic messages that seemed to be talking directly to him. And then came the drowned boy. Jedusable soon encountered a distorted, nightmarish version of Link, his eyes hollow, his smile twisted into something inhuman. The game would teleport him to empty, lifeless areas, places where there should have been NPCs, but there was only silence. And then the messages started appearing. "You shouldn't have done that, it's too late now, you've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" The game was speaking to him. Or rather, Ben was. Because Ben was still in the game, and he wasn't alone. Over time, the horror deepened. Jedusable reported dreams, visions of a drowned boy staring at him from beneath dark, murky water. When he tried to research who Ben was, he found nothing, no missing children, no records of a boy by that name, and yet the game knew him. Some theories emerged. Ben was a real boy who drowned. Some believe Ben was a real child, one who drowned near the time of the game's release. His spirit latched onto the cartridge, using it as a vessel to communicate, to trap others, to make sure no one ever forgot him. If this was true, then Ben was not just haunting the game, he was inside it. Ben was a digital entity, a rogue AI. Others suggest Ben was never human, but an artificial intelligence gone rogue, a self-aware, malevolent entity born from corrupted code. A spirit that lived inside the game, learning from its players, adapting, waiting. And if it was inside the game, what if it could spread? What if downloading the files, watching the videos, reading about Ben, was enough for him to find a way into your system? Ben was never in the game, but he's real now. A truly chilling theory suggests that Ben never existed. Not in the game, not in real life. The whole story was an elaborate creepypasta, until people started believing. And in the darkest corners of the internet, it is said that a belief given enough power can become reality. That Ben became real, that now he isn't just in an old cartridge, he's online and he's waiting. Jedusable eventually destroyed the cartridge, but it was too late. The game had already spread, through files, videos, and even text. They say that if you watch the original Ben Drowned footage, you might start experiencing strange occurrences on your own devices, unexplained glitches, distorted music playing randomly, your name being replaced with Ben in unexpected places, And then on some dark, quiet night, you might hear a whisper, "You shouldn't have done that." And when you turn around, you won't be alone. Ben will be watching. Most games are made for entertainment. Others exist for something else entirely. Something hidden, something never meant to be found. In 2017, a YouTube channel named Petscop appeared out of nowhere, uploading what seemed to be a simple playthrough of an unfinished, obscure PlayStation 1 game. But what started as a harmless walkthrough quickly became one of the most disturbing digital mysteries ever uncovered. Because Petscop was not just a game, it was a message, and whoever made it never wanted it to be found. The first Petscop video was uploaded by a YouTuber named Paul, who claimed to have found the game on an old PlayStation 1 disc. At first glance, it seemed like a generic, unfinished 90s game. A simplistic, brightly colored world where players captured strange creatures called pets. The game's aesthetic was almost childlike, reminiscent of Pokemon or Tamagotchi, but something felt off. The environments were empty, unnervingly silent. The pets weren't happy. They were scared, hiding. Some couldn't escape, even when you opened their cages. And then Paul found the door, a hidden doorway in a place that shouldn't exist. He stepped through it, and suddenly the innocent world of Petscop changed forever. Beyond the door was something different, a second version of the game no one was ever supposed to see. Gone were the bright colors and cheerful music. The world became dark, cold, empty, as if it had been abandoned. And then Paul began to find messages. Cryptic notes hidden in the game's code, a grave with a name scratched into it, a room labeled Quitter's Room, a place for those who had given up. And most disturbing of all, a message appeared. Marvin picked you up. As Paul uploaded more footage, viewers began to analyze the game's secrets, and what they found was terrifying. Some believed Petscop was connected to a real-life case, a cold case of a missing child, the Candace Newmaker connection. One of the most disturbing theories links Petscop to Candace Newmaker, a young girl who tragically died during a controversial therapy session in 2000. In the game, there is a character named Care, who is trapped in a small, enclosed space and cannot escape. The game references rebirthing, a disturbing therapy technique Candace underwent before her death. The phrase "Marvin picked you up" may refer to someone taking a child, a possible kidnapper. Was Petscop a hidden confession? Or was it made to reveal something someone wanted to stay buried? Others believed the game was self-aware, a living, breathing entity that changed based on the player's actions. Messages seemed to respond to Paul in real time, as if the game was watching him. Rooms would change unexpectedly, shifting between past and present. At one point, Paul's own name appeared inside the game, something he never programmed. Was Petscop alive, or was someone or something controlling it from the shadows? Another chilling theory is that Petscop was never a real game, only a test. A psychological experiment designed to study how players react to unsettling environments, cryptic messages, and the illusion of a hidden truth. But if that's the case, who made it? And why was Paul the one to find it? Paul continued uploading videos, but then, just as mysteriously as it began, the Petscop channel went silent. No conclusion, no final explanation, just gone. And to this day, no physical copy of Petscop has ever been found. It does not exist on any database, any archive, any collection of lost PlayStation games. It is as if the game never existed at all. And yet, some say that if you look hard enough, if you search deep enough into the darkest corners of the internet, you might find something, a file, a fragment, a whisper of code still lingering in the void. And if you do, be careful, because if Petscop was never meant to be found, then perhaps you weren't meant to find it. Some games are meant to be played, others are meant to be forgotten, but the question remains, if something was never supposed to exist, why does it feel like it's waiting to be found? Maybe these stories are just myths, maybe they're elaborate hoaxes, or maybe, just maybe, they're warnings. So the next time you stumble upon a strange game, a file with no origin, a world that shouldn't exist, ask yourself, are you the player, or are you the one being played?